Due to the state pension only designed to cover a third of an adult's working life, you can see how personal pensions and arrangements can mean that you can have a little bit more control on being able to retire a little bit sooner. Different pension plans that you could have: personal pension plans, occupational pension plans, there's defined benefit. Well, what does all this mean? I'm going to go through specifically personal pensions and what they are, how do they even work, what are the benefits of having a personal pension in the first place, how to get started and initially look to set up a personal pension, and summarise some key points and tips along the way. A personal pension is an arrangement that you have set up yourself or even transferred an old occupational scheme from an employer or one that's been paid up, which means that you're no longer paying to that pension, and it has then been moved into a personal arrangement, whether that's in a self-invested personal pension, a stakeholder pension. It's a money purchase scheme essentially, which just means that you have a pot of money that you have within a pension account to be able to utilise for your retirement. This differs from defined benefit or final salary pensions, as these are things like government organisations, military, fire, police, and some big corporate organisations also have these types of schemes where you have a benefit of receiving a regular income for the rest of your life upon retiring. Now, you don't have a pot of money in this situation, you have a small fraction of a large pot of money that the organisation holds. So they're quite a bit different in how they work. A personal pension can be opened by anybody, really. You can even open one for children to get them kick-started. You could open one yourself if you wanted to make extra contributions. So if your employer offers an employed scheme, then brilliant, you can contribute into that, and they might even give you some extra benefits of doing that, maybe match your contributions or increase theirs. And if so, this is brilliant. If they don't, you might want to have a little bit more control yourself, or if you've maximised what your employer will give you, you might want to have a bit more control over what you want to do with the remaining amount of money that you're investing, and rightly so. So how do they work? You can either contribute money on a regular basis or an annual basis, or just an ad hoc kind of one-off lump if you really wanted to. And once it's invested into the personal pension, you will get tax relief. I'll come back to this shortly. Once you've chosen a provider to put your pension with, you'll have various different assets that you can essentially invest within that pension. So this could be you decide to invest in individual shares of a company. So shares are just a fraction of a company. You could choose to invest in bonds or government bonds, which are essentially loans to either the government or a corporate company. Or you could choose to invest in some sort of property. In certain pensions, which are like self-invested personal pensions, you can invest directly into commercial property and even take out a mortgage up to 50% of its value in some cases. Or you could choose to invest in funds, which is a little bit easier for a lot of new starters who are coming into investing for themselves. Rather than individually stock picking, a fund is a collective of bonds and shares and even property and cash all pulled together to enable you to have a sort of off-the-shelf plan, really. And you could even choose multiple different funds, so you're well diversified and well spread out, so that you're not actually just putting all your investments with one particular company. And over time, once you're investing, whether it's annually, monthly, just a random lump sum that you're wanting to put into your pension, that you will benefit from compounded interest, which is essentially interest on your interest. So over time, you will be able to benefit from a good amount of growth, and this can be amplified with pensions because of the tax relief that you receive up front. A little tip is, if you're thinking, I haven't got a lump sum to actually start with, well, actually investing on a regular amount can be extremely powerful because you can benefit from a thing called pound cost averaging. And this is where you set up a direct debit or you manually do it yourself on a monthly basis. And as the stock market is fluctuating, as it inevitably will, when it goes down, you can essentially buy more units so that the price of the fund or the investment that you're within actually increases again. You've got more holdings on the way up. Now, yes, you have got the flip side of that, that when they're higher, you're buying more units. However, over the long term, if you were to chart this out, you will actually see that pound cost averaging is extremely powerful and can really amplify your pension savings and compound it into the future. So a couple of the benefits of having a personal pension, let's say in comparison with an ISA, or let's just say than holding it in cash. The tax advantages are a big deal. Now, you do get tax relief instantly the second you pay into a pension. The reason for this is because once you've been taxed on your pay from national insurance, from income tax, you receive your employed pay net of tax. Now, once you decide to use some of that money that's already been taxed and you put it into a pension, the government will essentially say, well, we'll give you that tax back. So they'll give you 20% of your money back, which can be very powerful in being able to amplify your savings, because that saving is upfront. Before the investment's even had a chance to grow, you're getting your tax back on it, which means, again, that amplifies the whole compounding aspect. Now, quick tip, if you are a higher rate taxpayer or an additional rate, you can actually claim the other 20% or 25% back from HMRC. The difference is you don't get this upfront. What you have to do is you claim this through self-assessment or self-assessment tax return, which, when I've spoken to clients in the past, has actually got them a small fortune back because they weren't aware that you could even receive the tax back on their pension. So once you receive the 20% up front, great, brilliant, got some tax back, but actually you could get a little bit more if you're a higher rate taxpayer, an additional rate. So why not get it? When you are at the point of retiring or you want to take some money out of your pension, then you can receive 25% of this tax-free. Well, you might be thinking, well, why can't I just have it all tax-free like you do in an ISA? Well, because you're getting the tax relief up front and the additional, if you've done it through self-assessment, then you're benefiting from that early. And then you're also benefiting from the capital growth of your pension. You're not paying any capital gains on it. But when you come to take the pension out, you will be taxed on a certain amount of it. So anything over the 25% tax-free that you decide to take as a lump sum, you will then be taxed on income as the remaining. Now, what you can do at this point is, for most people, their income usually drops down or they're no longer working. The whole point of having a pension is so you can retire. Now, when you do actually look to retire, by reducing your income down, you can start to be a little bit more clever with personal allowances. Now, utilising your personal allowances and some of your tax-free cash can mean you can take quite a good amount from your pension to actually live off. You can start taking income from your pension, utilising allowances. There might be different ways in which you structure the pensions in drawdown. So instead of taking income, you might decide to take segments or lump sums from this to have a little bit more control on when you actually pay some of that tax. And I always say, would you really be moaning or complaining if you're receiving enough in your retirement to be able to sustain you, even if there is a little bit of tax to pay? And as they say, don't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. As of the 6th of April 2023, you can actually pay up to £60,000 into a pension, which is known as your annual allowance. Now, this is limited by your relevant earnings. So even though you've got 60,000 that you could put into your pension, which is great, if you have an income that falls within the relevant earnings, then this amount is what it's limited to. So if you have a salary of 30,000, it's 30,000 that you could put in. And you can actually put more than 60,000 if you use a little thing called carry forward. Now, I'm not going to go into detail with this because it gets a bit more complicated, but carry forward essentially means you can use past year's allowances that are unused to drag forward and utilise more if you're, say, earning quite a good salary that's over the £60,000 a year. Where's the best place to get started, or how do I even get started? It's actually fairly straightforward to open an account. So you need to just choose what provider do you want to even go with. So, as an example, it could be Hargreaves Lansdown, it could be Vanguard, it could be Aviva, Fidelity. There's a big array of different providers that you could choose. The thing that you have to kind of foresee is what types of investments would you want to hold? Because I use the analogy that pensions are almost like supermarkets and shops. So you've got Sainsbury's, Aldi, Tesco, Lidl. They're your shop. And then within the shop, you have products. And those products are your tins of beans, your dog food, whatever you need to buy. Now, certain shops, you won't be able to buy certain products, much like pension accounts. If you went into Aldi and bought Aldi-owned products, well, you can't then go to Tesco and buy Aldi-owned products from Tesco, much like Aviva or Vanguard might have their own funds that you couldn't necessarily purchase or use in other different platforms. So there's not always that carryover. So kind of having a bit of foresight on where you might want to invest your money can help drive and choose what platform or shop you would want to actually purchase from. Also, as shops have different costs for products and services, this will be exactly the same with a platform. Certain platforms offer certain functionality, which means you can have better apps, better software, or a wider fund choice that you might be able to invest in. And because of this, the actual cost of the platform could be a little bit higher. So weighing up the cost on the platform can save you a small fortune. Once you've then decided which platform you might want to invest on, you can then select the investment within. So again, whether that's a fund or company or share. And once you've chosen that particular investment that's then held with that provider, you can then start moving funds into your cash account in most examples that you will have with your pension provider, just like a sub account within, that you'll move into the cash account and then can choose to then invest from that cash account into the particular funds, shares, bonds, whatever you've decided to actually invest in along the way. And then it's a case of just keep building it up from there, really. Keep monitoring it. If things and circumstances change, this can be something that might change your attitude to risk. You might decide, actually, I went for quite a risky fund here. I might leave it, but any new money I might put into something else. Or you might switch it along the way. And that's the control that you have of a personal pension that you might not have with a employer scheme. To summarise some of the key points, saving for your retirement doesn't just have to be within a pension. There's various different ways that you can manage your retirement. A pension is a tool that's kind of fit for the job. However, there is different ways in which you could do this. If you have property or rental income, that can be used as your retirement. You could have ISA accounts that you've built up over time. You could just have general investments that are not held in any particular type of tax wrapper, like a pension or an ISA. Or you could just have some simple cash that you've decided that you want to use some of that through your retirement, which in some cases can be quite a useful tool to be able to use. It doesn't all have to be invested. It's just by investing, you can mitigate against that naughty thing called inflation. Starting as soon as you can, and even if it's £25 a month, £50 a month, whatever you can actually afford to put into a pension, can have such a drastic impact and mean that when the state pension is being creeped further back, you have a little bit of control, and it can be quite liberating to know that you could retire sooner than the state actually want you to, purely because the state pension, as I mentioned at the start of the video, is only designed to cover a third of an adult's working life. And as people are living longer, with technological advances and people eating more healthy, this is then meaning that that is having to be pushed back because there's less people paying in and more people drawing out. So the only way that you can take control of this is control the controllables, which is you, and be able to invest in yourself.